Hi there, it's Claire Newcomb with you here today for Lisa Horton's design team. Today I'm going to do a quick video for you using the Happy Birthday layering stencils and the A6 embossing folder. You can see on the side here the items that I'm using and the colours that I'm using. The other set of nesting dies I'm using are the nested scalloped and plain square dies. So before I get going, I'm just going to create the layers for my background. I'll also show you the dimensions of the card that I'm using here. So I've already prepared this, but I've cut myself 3 strips of cardstock measuring 12 centimeters by 4 centimeters. I've cut them in 3 different colors, 3 different these are nice ice cream colors. You can do coordinating colors, complementary colors, an ombre effect. I've just stuck those together on the back with a piece of, this is invisible tape, you can use washi tape, but just so you create one complete layer. And then I've used the smallest of the squares, or is the 3rd die in the nesting set, and die cut those out, so we now have the fabulous stitch detail around the outside, and that is a nice single layer ready for us to stencil on. Now, to create the mat and layers for this, I've used the 2nd largest die in this set and die cut a piece of white card. So this would have started out at 12 by 12 centimeters. And this is just going to back the coloured strips here just to stabilise them. And then you will also see that you need a piece of 15 by 15 centimetre cardstock. This can be any colour of your choice. I've gone with a blue layer and I've used the largest scallop die to cut that out. So this will create our last matten layer like so before that goes onto our card blank. And the card blank I'm using is a square card blank measuring 15 by 15 centimeters. So I'm going to stencil the Happy Birthday design twice. The first time I'm going to stencil this is on to our multicoloured background here. Now I'm stenciling onto a square background, and you'll notice that this design is an A6 design. So before we get stenciling, we just need to take a moment just to center the design. So I'm going to take stencils numbered 1 and 2, and you'll see the stencil numbers sitting in the center here. I'm going to put them together. Because of the nature of the material, I can see how the designs are stacked. So I just want to make sure that the wording, the happy birthday wording, which if you look at the packaging is the center and the focus of this design, I just want to make sure that that happy birthday wording is going to sit centrally onto the layer that I'm going to stencil onto. Now, because of the nature of the stencil material, you can see that. I want to have my stripes going down this way. You can choose to have it this way. You could actually even arrange your strips. You might need to adjust the measurements of what you're using. You could even arrange the strips in a diagonal way. So I want to stencil across. So I'm going to figure out and just make sure that my wording is central on that layer there in the background. I'm just checking the designs actually that I have against the packaging here and just making sure that that does sit nicely. I do want my words to sit central actually, so I'm going to put that like so. And then I can just move the stencils round so they fit onto my peg system like that. My cardstock is in place. You could use your tacky mat to make sure that stays there. I'm happy with the magnetic mat on the Ultimate 2. And then I can begin stenciling. Now I'm going to do tonal stenciling onto this coloured cardstock initially. So the colours that I've got here, I think match quite well with the coloured cardstock that I'm using. So I have Surf's Up, Dusky Rose, Juicy Pineapple and Margarita, and as much as I can I'm just going to match the colours into the back of the card stock as we go, so the design remains tonal. Now all I'm really worried about at this stage, stenciling onto the coloured cardstock, is the outside design, because I will add the words a little bit later. So I'm going on to the yellow cardstock, so therefore I'm going to use the yellow ink. Now I will just bring in the ink to the outline of these words here, just to allow me a chance to line up the words a little bit later on. So I'm just going to come in there with the birthday, the beginning of the birthday, and just finish up at the end with the pink. So we have the Dusky Rose on the end here. Now Shocking Pink I think would work really well. You have the Sugar Candy Pink also, but I think the Dusky Rose works just nicely on this lighter coloured cardstock that I'm using like this. So I'm just going to add my pink into there. So I can take that away. Now you can see we have quite subtle tonal designs going on. This is going to be the background, so don't worry too much about that. So I'm just going to continue really quickly. I'm just going to add those words just so as I know where to add the happy birthday a little bit later on, just as a reference. I can add that there. That's stencil 2. So stencil number 3, from now onwards all I'm really concerned about is stenciling the design in the background, so the confetti and the stars and the glasses that are on the side of the word there. So really all I'm doing is just adding these extra little accents, and I'm using the tonal ink as we go just to keep that all in keeping. You don't have to use tonal. You could use one colour across the board if you're using multicoloured. That's entirely up to you. But all we're really concerned about, all we're really concerned about stenciling on this background is the accent designs, like so. So we can get through that really quick. So we have stencil number 4. Again, if you do start off with the tonal, do try and keep that as you go along. It just adds to how the design looks and just keeps it sort of consistent across the board. You can swap between using different sized stencil brushes, because that will then alter the amount of ink really that you add onto your design, and that will just help you get that little bit of shading as you go across. So put the yellow in this section here, and it's a nice way actually, if you do keep it tonal as you go along, it just sort of helps you choose the colours of all the different accents, because there's a lot going on in this stencil, and if you do want to make it really vibrant and colourful and multicoloured as you go along, you can get a little bit confused and sort of wondering where you should go with the colours. So if you just keep it tonal, then you know exactly where you are. So I'm going to make sure I put plenty of ink down on this green this time. You could actually, if you wanted, swap to a slightly different green, just to add some different layers. That would work also. So make sure we put plenty of ink down there. Again, so we're not really worried about adding the background to the letters at this stage. We will do that in a second onto white cardstock. I am going to be matting and layering this onto blue a little bit later on, so if you did feel like you needed an extra element onto this tonal background, you could add some blue somewhere just to keep everything all in keeping. But it really does depend on the colours that you're using. Now stencil number 6 is just detailing the letters, so we don't need to go into that one. So we'll come on to the last stencil, which is the last of the accents that we have. So I shall add my details in there. And we can do that really quick. You say some of these accents, especially as we go down through the later numbers of the stencils, they get smaller and smaller because obviously we're layering them. So you can actually get through this stenciling quite quick. Now I'm putting quite a lot of ink down for these accents actually, although they're tonal, I do want them to stand out. Then we can go on to the green again. Now I've chosen to use coloured cardstock in the background just to add to the fun nature of this stencil, but you could quite easily do this onto white cardstock, white textured cardstock. This is what I'm stenciling onto at the moment, so you get the added dimension as well. So that's our background stenciled. That gives us a really nice base to add our wording onto afterwards, and you can see just how centralized that design has become. So what I can do now, I can take my embossing folder. Now because I've chosen to use this size nesting square die, I did check beforehand that it does actually fit really nicely into the A6 embossing folder width-wise, and we don't need to worry about it not sort of fitting the length of that, but width-wise this works really nicely. So if we can line up our design, like so, and obviously there's enough of the background accents to be able to give us plenty of reference points to line that up. So we just get that lined up like so. Then we can run that through the embossing folder, or through the die cutting machine. So we can come back here. That gives us a really nice effect, and in itself actually that could actually be used as a layer by itself, because although we haven't stenciled any of the wording, the deep embossing that we have from that folder has actually given us the wording there for us to be able to read. So that could actually in effect be added straight to the card, and then you're ready to go. That's really pretty, a really lovely effect card. But what I did want to do is just show you how we then go about stenciling the words in themselves. So I'm going to bring the first two stencils in again. I've already got my cardstock ready to stencil onto. It's white textured cardstock again this time, and I'm just going to make sure that my cardstock is positioned well enough under the stencil to capture all of that. Again, this stage I'm not worried about stenciling the accents. It really is only the words now that I want to stencil. So I'm just going to give that a quick wipe as we go along. So the base of these words, I'm just going to put down really lightly and use the green, the margarita green. I don't want this to be too heavy, so I'm using my blending brush so I can cover the area quite quickly but not too heavily, because we do need to add extra colour on top of this, so we are layering our colours, so we don't want to go too bold at this stage. So stencil number 2, then we are just laying down the base for the word happy. So again, doing exactly the same, just a very light green base. So we have, let me just show you that, quite an even amount of ink on both of those words there. So we have our stencil. So now we can start picking out individual letters. You could work with the colours that you've used in the background, or you can choose different colours. Again, I'm sticking with the 4 colours that I've got here. So I'm coming in with the yellow initially, just concentrating on these letters that you can see here. I'm just laying down a really nice layer there. So now you can start seeing that the word is going to start coming to life. And I'm just going to alternate the colours between the letters that I'm using. So we're going to have a really bold and vibrant happy birthday sentiment on here. So you can choose the colours. You can have them still to match the striped background if you wish. And there's lots of different combinations, and you can have a lot of fun using it many different times to create many different looks actually. So this is one that you are going to be able to change the look of. Even if you stencil it 5 times in a day, you can make each one of those look different. So this is great for batch making, to create a set of birthday cards just to have sitting there ready to use. So you can see how well these colours are really coming together. So now we have stencil number 6, and this is the inserts of the letters. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the tonal on top of these the accents to the letters to actually make the B and the D and the A really stand out. So I'm going to put lay the green on top of the green, pink on top of the pink, and obviously the yellow on top of the yellow. Then what I'll do in a second is to just go over that very slightly with a bit of blue, just to make sure that they pop and add some shadow. The working tonally will work, but you may just want to make these sort of internal areas of these letters really stick out an awful lot more. So I'll just remove that stencil, and that does work. You can see sort of the shaded area on the inside of the letters, but I really think that we need to make them pop just a little bit more. So I'm going to replace the stencil there and just come in with a blending brush for the blue. Just pick up a tiny bit of blue, we don't need a huge amount. Take off the majority of that onto the stencil and just one swipe down, and just wipe across the stencil. You will take some of the colour with you, the other colour that's there. If you're not keen on that, then you can wipe the stencil first. But what that will do is just darken those internal areas and make those letters really pop an awful lot more. So we have the last stencil. Again, we can still see that we have our areas, so we can stay tonal with those. So I'm going to add the yellow on top of where I've added the yellow. Like that. Again, I'm not worried about the accents because I've already created those. And there we are. We have our stenciled sentiment. You can see just how vibrant those letters really work. Now, what I want to do is to fussy cut those out. But before we do that, again, we can put this into our embossing folder and just emboss that. Now again, this is going to give us another completely different look, because by embossing this time, obviously the happy birthday, the words are really going to stand out because that's what's stenciled, but the accents around the outside are going to stay white, which again is another look that you could use on your card. So we just bring that back now and take that out of our folder. So we have the lovely embossed detail around the outside, but it's the happy birthday that jumps out. Now, if I had centered this properly, I could use that as a topper in itself and trim this down and use that on a card also. So if I just bring my layers of the card in. Now, bear in mind, obviously, that this hasn't been trimmed down, but this could easily be layered onto the card front. And again, you have a completely different look, more subtle because your outside areas are white embossed, but I think they are just as pretty. Now, what I do want to do is actually fussy cut these words out. Now, because I've embossed, I can see the cut line for where these letters are. So it really doesn't take me too long at all. You can choose to either die cut, you can take a nested rectangle or a nested oval. Actually, Peter's nested oval dies work really well to cut out the words here, but just a pair of scissors and you can actually go through and cut that really easily, because that deep embossing gives us a nice border that highlights each of those letters. Is really easy to follow. And when you're fussy cutting, if it's something that is perhaps a little bit new to you, what I find easier is to keep my scissors in one place. So you'll see that my scissors in my right hand, other than sort of moving up and down, aren't actually sort of twisting around like this. I'm keeping my right hand quite steady, and I'm actually using my left hand to twist and turn the cardstock around. Now, obviously, if you're left-handed, then your scissors, well, say not obviously, it's possible that your scissors and your cardstock will be reversed. Now, my son is left-handed, and I've various stages through him growing up. Actually, I've shown him how to do things, and I've had to rethink, and I have actually had to sort of reverse my my handiwork as well, just to allow him to learn. So, but I do appreciate that sometimes if you're left-handed, you don't always use left-handed scissors, but whichever hand you find the dominant hand, I find that's the hand to hold your scissors in, and keep that one steady and use your other hand to maneuver your cardstock around. So you can see that it's actually quite straightforward to fussy cut those words. Actually, let me just straighten that up there. There we go. So we have our little embellishment sitting there. Now we can take some foam pads. I've got a set of foam pads that I've actually cut in half. So we can add those to the back of our die cut now. We'll take off the back ends. We'll just leave that there. We can bring in our card blank. We can start putting this together. So we can attach all our layers down. There's one of two ways you could do this. I've added a nice white layer there. You could equally put that straight down onto the blue. I'm wondering if that's the way to go. So what we can do, now I've added my foam pads onto my wording, I can just decoupage that onto the front of the card. And I think just to highlight the the white that's in the background of the sentiment there, I will layer that onto that white layer. That will just stabilize those 3 strips that we taped together. And then we can add this. So you could either have foam pads, so I'm going to put this straight on. And there we have a really nice and vibrant birthday card using your A6 embossing folder and layering stencils in a slightly different way. So we can bring those in there. There we have a really fun birthday card. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you could subscribe to our channel and join us again next time. Take care.